Seamus Hanley, it's great to have you. You're very welcome to Bere Island Radio, and you're going to give us a great tale of sea, ships, people, and the interaction.
Indeed. Thank you, Barry, for inviting me.
And as it happens, this week, 158 years ago, there was great excitement in Berehaven. Why was that, Seamus?
Berehaven people got to see and to go on board the biggest ship in the world at the time, and for free. In England, and when she went to New York for her maiden voyage, people were charged a fee to get on her. I heard about her from my grandfather, from Jack Hanley. His father had seen her when the ESB were laying the cable to Bere Island in 1958. There were a few people there, still old enough, had seen her in the harbour.
The ship we're talking about actually is the Great Eastern. What was special about her?
She was a ship, really, that was decades ahead of her time. She was built in the late 1850s. She had a double hull, all wrought iron, the first iron ship. She had giant paddle wheels. Newish at the time was a huge screw propeller as well as the paddle. And she had sails on her 6 masts as well.
She was a hybrid.
A hybrid, Barry. She drew 32 feet of water when she was fully loaded, and she was 700 feet in length, and they built another ship bigger than her for another 40 years.
And why was she in Berehaven?
She was supposed to start out her life as a passenger ship. She was designed to carry 4,000 passengers from England to the Orient and to Australia without even having to stop to recoal. There were lots of mishaps, lots of financial problems. And so her passenger carrying career didn't last long, didn't go according to plan. And so it just so happened that it was good to refit her for cable laying. She was there twice. The first year, 65, Berehaven wasn't in the plan at all for her. She was going to lay a cable from Valencia to Newfoundland. But what happened is they had to lay out 30 miles of shore cable out first from Valencia, and then she would splice on. But the bad weather delayed it. And so she had to wait in Berehaven for 3 days until they had run out the 30 miles of cable in Valencia. And so they had 3 days twiddling their thumbs. They went up Hungry Hill, but the fog came in and they didn't get any pictures. And all we have actually is a not very complimentary account of the locals clamoring on board to sell their wares. And the writer put it as they were like ants climbing up the heaven-sent carcass of a huge elephant. And eventually...
I'm sure Bere Island people can't take all the credit for that. They'll probably get arrived from the mainland as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And eventually she got going. And she made it almost to Newfoundland, but she lost the cable. It snapped in 2,500 fathoms of water, no less, about 600 miles east of Newfoundland. So they tried hard to get it back. They found it a few times, but then they had to come back. They were out of coal and they were out of options, and they started over again in 1866. Now much wiser this second time.
So what was different about that, about 66?
Besides all the technical improvements, they decided the logistics would be different. The entire squadron now made Berehaven their first assembly point. That was number one. Then second is she burnt an awful lot of coal a day, almost 200 tons of coal a day. And the channels around Sheerness, where she had to get out of London, was very shallow. They were very shallow. And so she couldn't get out with a full load of coal and 2,500 miles of cable on it at the same time. So they decided she would go partly full up of coal, but they sent 2 coal boats ahead of her to Berehaven, and she finished the coaling there. She put on 2,000 tons of coal in the Berehaven Harbour as well. And then the weather came into it again, and this time labor and communications problems came into it, and they delayed things a bit. So she spent a whole week there from the 5th of July to the 12th of July in the harbour in 1866. Yeah.
And you have an account of her time here.
We have pictures and first-hand media accounts as well, and they were much more positive. I'm going to quote from one. The peasantry were allowed to come on board, and they did in their hundreds. But it wasn't so much for sightseeing as for selling. And the sailors and stewards were absolutely delighted by the ridiculously low prices. And I'm going to give you some examples. Any amount of fine live fowls at 5 pence apiece. New laid eggs, 3 pence a dozen. Trout, 1 penny each. New milk like cream, a penny a quart. Live crabs, a penny each. And huge lobsters, 2p each. The word spread and more people came to sell and the prices went down. And at the end, they had to sell at about half the prices I've been telling you, but they were very happy.
But other than that, there were demand for not just produce, but for labour.
They had to put on 2,000 tons of coal from the 2 coal boats. But now Bere Island really showed how smart they were. This was a seller's market this time. The local men, they succeeded in getting 5 shillings a day. 9 hours of work, 5 shillings a day, and their keep, their food. And the man says such wages were never heard of in this part of the country. And apparently the men themselves couldn't even work for thinking about it. But he said they didn't do much. He said they did the very minimum of work. They were acting like saints when it came to other things. On the Friday, when a dinner of bread, meat, and potatoes was offered to these men, not a single man of the 200 would touch the meal, as it was a fast day. And so they had biscuits and coffee served out to them instead. Imagine. But
the power of the clergy stays.
But they didn't stop their commercial instincts from coming to the top.
They would have had to go to confession probably if they did that. And they probably wouldn't have been used to coffee. It would have been new, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then back to the work, and how do the men like the coal?
Well, first of all, I think there was a bit of friction near the end from what I can tell, because as the week went on, there was still stuff to be done, and the natives weren't making things any easier. And I think a lot of it had to do with the resentment about work. So first of all, they said that the natives, eagerly bent on sightseeing, are becoming a serious nuisance at this point. They didn't go up the regular companion ladder they were supposed to, but instead they swarmed the deck the day before she was supposed to leave and blocked up all the avenues left free from timber and machinery and started impeding the men at work. So things weren't all that pleasant. And when the captain gave orders that they should be sent back, they started hooting and cursing and even came to blows. And there was a bit of a disturbance. And the guy says, look, they wouldn't even come on board, some of them, for 5 shillings a day. I'll get to that in a minute, when there was work available. And here they were trying to block the others from working. Yeah.
So about their not working?
Well, what happened, it sounds like the laborers from the boat, on the crew, the coal men and themselves, were the ones who finished it. It looks like some of the islanders and the mainland people didn't stick to the coaling, and it was the ship's men who finished it. And this account hasn't been widely circulated, but the reporter says, even with the unheard of 5 shillings a day plus their food, divil a bit of work would they do. No, they were full of excuses. Oh, bedad, oh, your honor, I'll do as much work as any man, as long as it's not in a coal hole. Put me out in the open fields, your honor, mowing hay or milking cows, and I'm the boy that'll tire out the parish. But by jabers, 'twould tear the soul out of any man to work all day with his mouth so full of cinders that he couldn't even spit. And so 40 or 50 of them were let go, it sounds like, during the week. And that's why I think, and the work was given to the ship's men, and they were very happy to have the work, and they were willing to work. Yeah, so it didn't end well by the sound.
So fair play to the locals. They weren't overawed by either the ship or the officers.
Yeah.
To finish for a while, could you tell us a bit about the communications and an example of the speed?
It's very, very, very interesting, because honestly, things haven't really changed in the world, I think. And why I'm saying that is because just like now, news was money back then. And Reuters they always liked to be the first with the news. And getting a jump of a day with the news and the stock prices and cotton prices and all this sort of thing was major even back then. Yeah. So Crookhaven was really in the thick of it for a while, doing that.
And some of the crew jumped ship, did they? And got their comeuppance due to communications.
Well, this is it. They got caught by their own modern communications caught of them. Apparently, the evening that the ship, the Great Eastern, left Berehaven to go to Valencia and head west, three of the sailors deserted, and they'd been given their advance notes for their wages, and they were usually paid when they would go and present the note to the company's agent or their family, I guess, in London. But on his way west from Valencia, the captain sent a message back to Valencia on the very cable that he was laying out. And Valencia relayed it on immediately to London and said, Brown, Jones, and Robinson deserted ship at Berehaven. Please stop advance notes. So they were foiled in their tracks. This is a very long story, and you can find the links to the longer versions of the two stories, this 2 years, on the Community Archive website, and also via the link on the Facebook page.
The Bere Island,
Yeah.
Great, Seamus. That was a wonderful account, and interesting to see that people haven't changed that much.
That's what I say as well. Now, I don't think they'll ever be, though, the center of the world's attention for the whole week. That was a lot to be in the news for a whole week that time.
Excellent, Seamus. Great to hear all that, and thanks indeed for relaying all that to us.
Well, it was a pleasure.